Welcome to FilmRiot Mondays. Today we have another really great interview for you guys. This one's with Josh Tessier. He is the stunt coordinator for the Ghost Recon short film that we've been talking about, but he's also worked on things like 300 Rise of an Empire and Argo, so the guy definitely knows what he's talking about. We talked about stunts, getting into the business, and really all things industry, so I'm going to shut up now and get into it.
Logo.
So Josh.
Yes, Ryan.
Let's talk a little bit about what is your background as far as stunts goes. I mean, what's your start with what is your training like? How do you even start that? Like, how do you get into stunts?
As a stunt person?
Right, yeah.
My mom, she was a stunt person. She did high diving course in the 1970s, and she did she was in the circus and was the first woman to do like what's called a Athenian duo, like a trapeze act with her partner without a net and all that fun stuff. Now that didn't really help me, and she did some stuff. I do believe she did some stuff on, because in the 70s, IMDb and the internet didn't exist.
Right.
So she did some stuff with Jeannie Epper, who was Linda Carter's double for Wonder Woman. But she was a circus lady, and it was kind of, I guess, in our blood. My mom had a favor left the pool, I guess, from the 80s, where she used to do drugs with. You know how it is.
Yeah, sure.
And I met Eric Norris, who was Chuck Norris's son. I owe my career to him. Like, I wouldn't have a career at all if it wasn't for him. But that's kind of how my trajectory was. And from that point, it was just, how it is in any kind of aspect of making film. It's just continually moving and grinding and all that fun stuff.
And just so people know, can you just quickly define the difference between a stunt performer and a stunt coordinator?
Oh, of course. A stunt performer is a performer, kind of like an actor in the stunt world. There's a lot of that, stunt acting, that they will perform a stunt. Like, there's different types of categories for stunts and all that fun stuff.
Right, I think a lot of people don't know that either.
Yeah.
They think just a stuntman's a stuntman, period.
Yeah, I mean, people think that when you see the guy shooting, it's like, oh, there's an extra, blah, blah, blah. No, that's probably a stunt guy. Right. Or the guy who falls down, or is like, hey, and it gets blown up, that's a stunt guy.
Right.
Anything that you see, like anybody doing anything physical, and you don't really see their face, or if you see their face and they're in a fight scene or anything like that, that's a stunt performer. And then you have the guys who are the utility stunt guys who do, I guess, like the meat and potatoes of stunt worlds. They're the guys who are huffing pads, they're the guys who kind of can do a little bit of everything. And a stunt coordinator is the guy who coordinates the action. It's like, and sometimes, and usually from coordinating, you get to second unit directing and action directing, because that's your world. Like, that's the guy who puts the action together for the director, and they're hand in hand, as in the director says, I'd like this fight, and a good stunt coordinator will be like, how would you like it? And then they talk about character, because it's important, because if you just put a fight together, it doesn't mean anything. And there's also fight coordinators.
Right.
So you stunt coordinator, fight coordinator, and then stunts.
And would the stunt coordinator be over the fight coordinator?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Stunt coordinator is probably at the very top.
He's kind of like the director.
He's a director. Yeah. And then if it's a big film like Deadpool, you would have second unit director and then the stunt coordinator below him. But the second unit director is usually a really, really high level stunt coordinator.
You just did Ghost Recon, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a lot of different types of stunts in Ghost Recon. You have explosions, you have the fights, you have the gun work, you have the car stuff. So with each individual thing that you're bringing to the table, are you having to bring a specialist for that thing, or they're kind of like generalists?
They're generalists. Those are kind of you just look at your team. Like, I have a core team of guys. For the car gag, it wasn't extremely hard. So I was able to have one of my guys who can do some car stuff, and he knows how to hit a mark. It's not like we're flipping a car and it explodes in the air and he's parachuting out of some shit.
Right. Fast and the Furious
Yeah,
style.
It's not Fast and Furious. It's, So I would get a guy who I know can handle that, but he can also help me with the fight stuff. He can also help me huff pads, and he can also help me with rigging. And you can use him more, and it saves production money, and it saves everybody time. And we just kind of keeps the crew small and tight.
So moving into Ghost Recon, there were a lot of different stunts at Ghost Recon, but the first thing that was done in production was the fight scene, which wasn't really detailed on the page. It wasn't really in the script. It was more like fight happens. So how do you go about developing that?
Well, usually how I like to approach fight scenes is the writer will give you a nice base, so it's not move to move. And then you go to the director, you take that and you take the ideas of what the character is, and you start going with styles, like what kind of style it is, particularly the fight style of the two characters. For instance, DJ's character is an agent, undercover agent, so he does have a little bit of skill. So he's going to be able to outskill Scar's character, and then getting a Scar that's imposing and big. He's also skilled, but he's going to be a little bit dirty. He's a Sicario. And you put that together, and then you start coming up with a story that works from beginning to end, that you can have our peaks and valleys, and that's kind of how we approach it. And then we kind of put base choreography so we can show what's usually called in the stunt world previs. You put a previs together so it can kind of show the idea of what the fight is.
Which is you just filming a version of the fight with stunt performers to show to the director.
Right. And in this case, we were in a small room with the director, and to believe you were there.
Yes.
And taped on our iPhone and showed you guys like how it would transgress through the rooms. It's important for us to go and look at the location because you can find cool stuff. Like, oh, we can put a bottle here. Oh, there's this cool edge. We can use the room. I always like to use the environment as when I'm doing fights or when I'm doing anything because it makes it feel more real. It ties you to the set. That's how I always go about doing fights is, first and foremost, you don't want to just go put moves together because you have to play to the strengths of the actors too, especially if you don't have a lot of time like we did. You have to, look at it and play to everybody's strengths and then giving the director what his vision is and then put a little juice on it.
What do you mean by juice? Just a little extra flair?
A little extra flair, like my own flair. And if you read, oh, he punches him here instead of a punch, how about if we throw him and he goes upside down and he tracks through? So we can do something a little extra, like the fight has a little bit of extra rather than punch, kick, punch, kick. At the end of the day, you want to feel like it's cohesive to the part of the film.
But then we moved on to the gunfight. Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of guns happening, but there were no blank firing guns, right?
No.
In this instance, it was airsoft?
Yeah, it was like airsoft, CO2. So you can get so you at least can get a feel of a kickback because there's nothing worse than doing this.
If you had blanks, what's the considerations for that? So say if there's a low budget filmmaking guy who's making his own film, like what does he have to keep in mind if airsoft included? Why would he go with one over the other, and what would be the considerations for both?
I like practical. So I feel like when you see the muzzle fly, when you see in camera, you see it there, it makes it. It feels real. It looks real. There are safety things that we have to do for that. But the consideration is when you have that, you have to have an armorer, which is more expensive.
Have what?
An armorer, which is the guy who takes care of all your guns. But the consideration is like permitting, the type of guns, and the price overall. But you can get around that depending on what type of guns you need, the days you need it. Airsoft is just you can plug and play. You get the CO2. You don't need permits. As long as you have the CO2 so you can feel the kick, it just adds a little bit more for post to put the gunfire on. And it can be a plus too, because sometimes you're not always going to see the flash of the gun. When you're doing it real, you're going to have to add it anyways.
Yeah.
I always say the real gunfire because you get the shell casing, you get a little bit of smoke, you get that feel. It's more for, I feel like, the performance of guys actually shooting, and you can get a nice wide with if it's at dark and at night. But that doesn't mean that going airsoft is the wrong way to go. I feel like that's also a great way to go because you can control it.
Yeah,
you can control it in post. You can control it.
And if someone went off on a production doing airsoft, do they still need permits of any kind, or do they need to bring someone in?
I mean, no. I mean,
unless it's obvious safety considerations of tell the local police.
Tell the local police. And here's the thing: there's a bunch of shows. I think even I don't know how much real gunfire, like in John Wick or some of those movies. I wasn't a part of those films, but I'm assuming that in particular places it's hard to get proper gunfire. So you're going to have CO2, and they can add it in post. But the guns are a little lighter, and you can move with it faster. And so there's pluses and minuses.
Is there anything different about these productions, airsoft guns? Like, are the barrels plugged up, or is it just
for CO2?
Yeah.
Well, CO2 it's like a BB gun.
Yeah.
It's like so.
But just to make sure there's nothing lodged in the barrel, is that plugged up, or is that just double checked? And
it's double checked, and that right there, like the CO2 thing, it's just popping air. There's nothing. You just check the chamber, make sure there's nothing in there. And for when you're doing actually live fire, obviously it's always clearing, always making sure, the armor is always on it. As soon as you're done with it, it's down and it's straight to the armor. You know what I mean? Because it's a real it's a weapon.
Yeah, definitely.
So, blanks can still kill somebody. So you have to be very safe.
Totally. And then we had the explosion, which was amazing.
Yeah, Sam was great. Sam was the special effects guy that we had. Sometimes stunts and special effects are separate, but I like it because we help each other. We're very involved with each other. You have an explosion, then I have stunt people in front of the explosion taking it. So it's like a give and take of figuring out how we're going to do that gag. And I think it's very important to be a collaborative team with your special effects guy. And Sam was great. Sam is a wonderful special effects guy, and he had a great team.
Going back to the gunfight, you actually had spark hits too.
Those, it's what's called zirconium. We call them in stunts and special effects. It's called zirc balls. When you hit them on metal, they give you a nice little spark. It's something that's been used for decades and decades. It's a great tool.
And how are they fired?
Like a Tippmann, just a regular paintball gun. High end, because you want something that has good aim, has good trigger. All that fun stuff.
So it's basically just like paintballs filled with that material, that substance.
Well, zirconium is just it's just an actual
Oh, it's
It's
just
a solid,
that's what it is.
yeah, it's what it is. Now
Gotcha.
you have things like dust ball with almond dust, like white dust, black dust. That is like a paintball that is filled with stuff, you know, when you want to hit like a brick wall and you don't want it to spark, you want it to kind of, you know, splay, or it's good for a Western or for the ground, you know, something like that.
Nice.
So, and those are great things for independent films, and those are great things for just to give it like a little extra, you know,
A little extra kiss.
a little extra kiss. That was
And what
weird.
about working with a director? Like for, say, a lot of the people that watch our show, they're up-and-coming directors or just filmmakers or producers, whatever. What advice would you give them if they've never worked with a stunt team before? Like, how would they approach that? What should they be keeping in mind?
I like a collaborative director, obviously, but I'm there to aid the director's vision, no matter what. If it's an action thing and you haven't done a lot of action, well, the guy that you're hiring has, you should probably listen to him, because at the end of the day, you want it to be good. So I would say just be collaborative.
Yeah.
Don't be so stubborn as in this is what it is. Stick with your vision, obviously, but everybody, like the stunt team, particularly if it's a big action piece, you know, if it's like Mad Max or if it's John Wick, they want the action to be a part of the story, not just an action piece. You know, you want to be able to feel like it's not, oh, that's just a fight. Oh, they needed a fight here. It's a part of the story.
And what about up-and-coming wannabe stunt performers? How would they get started?
Huff and pads, man. Do the $100 a day jobs.
So just
Be
finding
humble.
something to plug into.
Find something to plug into. Go train.
What would they train for?
The first thing to learn is learn how to fall. Go to a judo class. Go to an acting class. It's very important to know, because obviously, you know, stunt guys have to act a fight. You have to act a reaction. You know, that's your bread and butter. My bread and butter for a long time was falling down stairs or falling down, getting punched in the head and falling down. And there's a thing called the head dobble, which is like, you know, you get hit in the face and you do a reaction. That's just what it is. So someone hits you in the face, that's your job, to be able to act that and act to fall. You don't actually have to fall. I mean, there's old school guys who just eat shit, take it to the ground, all that fun stuff. And that's, you know, listen, I do that. But there's a way to do it, you know, to not hurt yourself and make it like an illusion. And you just act it all the way down. So I say take an acting class. At least you get what that is. Take a camera class, because every stunt guy should know how to sell a punch. Because the coordinator can only do so much, and your actor is going to be busy working on his stuff. So you need to know how to push the actor where he needs to go to sell a punch. A stunt guy should always know, a good fight guy should always know where the camera is. And then know, just like an actor, just like a director, know what you're good at. Know what you're going to get hired for, so you can really work on that, get yourself in the system, and then start working on other things that you want to do.
What would be one like big don't do for like a new director?
Just don't be an asshole.
I like that.
Don't
answer.
pretend you know what you don't. You hire these guys to make you look better. Everybody has an ego. I get that. It's okay to not know something.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just in general, for me too. Like, my job is not to be like, all right, director, blah, blah, blah. My job is to aid that director's vision. So, you know, in the stunt coordinator thing is being able to talk to that particular director and say, this is what I'm thinking, and have a real conversation about, I'm trying to help you get here. So that's the job. So even if they do that, it's for stunt coordinators. It's our job to help that vision and make it as good for everybody as possible to make the best kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. That's something I'm always saying too. Is just don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
So just don't. I don't know. I got my first experience working with a stunt crew was a lot of me going, I have no idea how this world works. Help.
Yeah, and then you know what? They'll appreciate you, because they're there to help you.
Yeah.
And then for you to learn, it's like, you know, then they take you and like, this is what we think and this, and how do you want to see this? How
Sure.
can we, and you tell us, like, well, I really want to see it like this and this. And then from that point, we take it and make sure you get what you want. So
Right.
you're like, how do I do this? I'm like, well, this is how we would do it. How do you want to see it? Now let us do what you would like, you know? Yeah.
If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, innovator, domain.com is a place to go when that next idea hits you. When you get a domain extension from domain.com, you're taking the first steps in creating an identity for your brand or idea. The two premier and most recognizable domain extensions are .com and .net, which means those are the ones that are going to help you expand your presence online the best. And of course, domain.com is reliable, affordable, and easy to use, but they're hooking you up with 25% off to make it more affordable when you get domain names, web hosting, and email. Just use the coupon code FilmRiot at domain.com's checkout. And when you think domain names, think domain.com.
Logo.
So that's it for today. Big thanks to Josh for sitting down and talking with us. And just as a reminder, we do have our sale coming up. It's the 25th through the 27th. If you want more info on that, check the notes below. And for my suggestion of the week, this one is a whole YouTube channel, the Sam and Niko channel from the guys at Corridor Digital. They're always posting really great stuff, really good BTS, and sort of day-to-day what it's like to work at their office and sort of what it's like to work in this sort of an industry even. So definitely check that out. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.